morning. We are out again on another trip. So I'm here, Briggs has got the camera, so he's here, and today we are out at a place called White Gates, Little Elk Creek, and it is a canyon that you can hike along the creek and go up into the hills a little bit. It used to be a road that went through here, and you could drive through all the way, and top into this canyon we're going to be going up, you end up at a campground at Dalton Lake, and you can drive in from there from Nemo Road, but from this side, on the north side, you have to either hike in or walk in this trail. So this road used to go through here in 1972 in the flood, June 9th flood. The road was taken out and it was never rebuilt, and basically the roadway and close to the roadway is where we're going to be walking today. So it's some pretty spectacular views. The formations do some pretty amazing structural things up here, and we'll stop and take a look at those. So join us as we go explore Little Elk Creek. Okay, this is Little Elk Creek down here. This is August, so there's not much water in it. It looks like it's running pretty low. In the spring, this can get pretty heavy. Behind us here, this is a formation that we have not seen before or talked about. This is the Monocline formation. So this is the formation that sits on top of the Madison limestone, and we've seen the Madison limestone in several videos. So this is younger. This is Pennsylvanian and Permian at the upper end. And so we will take a look at some of the structures in this as we go along. Right here, it's mainly dolomite, which is a magnesium carbonate, and then there's shale partings and there's sandstone beds in here. So it's a real mix of a lot of different lithologies. So it's pretty flat line. The dip here is kind of to the north, very, very gentle. You can see the strata in here, and so again, we'll take a look at this as we go on. You can see right here, this is a great example of bedding, and you can follow this bedding along through the length of the outcrop. And so this is a dolomite below, dolomite above. It's very, very dense material. And then in between it, this 6 inches in here is a shale parting. And so, and I forgot my hammer. This looks like it's two dolomite units separated by about 6 inches of shale or a mud parting. So precipitated rock in the sea, and then a layer of mud came in, and you can just dig this stuff out. It's just loose shale, and then really hard competent rock on this side. So we're going to put some acid on this and see if we can see any kind of reaction here. This surface right here is flat, and it looks freshly broke. And so let's see if we get any kind of reaction here. Absolutely nothing. So it's not calcium carbonate. So let's scratch it up a bit. powder on it and see if it fizzes here. Oh yeah, very, very vigorous fizz, which is dolomite. So the dolomite matrix is a tight enough bond between the magnesium and the carbonate that you need to scratch it up and powder it up before the acid will break down the carbonate and get that fizz. So we have two dolomite units separated by a shale with a relatively flat bedding. So if we step back down here to the trail, and let's walk down the trail here a few feet. All of these rocks above us here on the canyon wall that we see are all belong to the Monocline formation. Okay, so the other thing I want to just note is that if we look back here where we just came from, we'll see that prominent ledge of dolomite separated by that shale, and you can see that it's going downhill away from us. And down there where we first looked at it, that ledge was like waist high. And now, right here, directly across from where we're looking, that ledge is about this high. So the formation is dipping from behind us, dipping off this way. So it's basically kind of a northeasterly dip on this. And so as we walk up this trail, we are walking deeper and deeper and deeper into the formation. Now, I said back before that the Monocline lies on top of the Madison, and so if we walk along this trail, and as we continue the trail, we're walking deeper into the formations, at some point up here, we should expect to see the Madison limestone again as we meet it along the trail. So we'll keep our eye out for that and other interesting things. So the creek down here, again, very low flow in the creek. This is basically, these springs originate again from spring flow. There is a small dam up here, Dalton Reservoir, Dalton Lake. It has a little dam, and that's what's controlling what the outflow is at this particular time of year. So let's continue on up the trail. Okay, so if we look here beside the trail, there's all this, these large, huge boulders, and this is very red. So it's a red rock. There's boulders in here. So this is all debris that has arrived here either from landslides or slope failures from higher above or through flood events. Now, if you've ever used a topographic map, you'll maybe have recognized that every once in a while on the map there'll be a small X with the letters BM and then some numbers. And the BM stands for benchmark, and then the numbers are the elevation of that location. And so the United States Geological Survey has placed these benchmarks, kind of like survey markers, out around the countryside. And if you look at the topographic map for the quadrangle here where we're at, there's a benchmark right over here. So let's get off the trail here and go see if we can find this benchmark. Here it is, right here. So, United States U.S. Geological Survey, 1952, elevation above sea in feet is 3,824 feet. So 3,824 feet. Now, typically, benchmarks are going to be placed on something permanent. It may even be a pillar or a post that's dug into the ground. This is a piece of float. This rock that it is on came as erosional debris from somewhere further up canyon, and is buried in the alluvium that's in these small terraces beside the stream. And but 1952, there was the flood in 1972, and even though this might have been under floodwater, apparently this little terrace that we're on right here did not move because the benchmark is still here in place. So when we get back, I will insert a little clip in here of a piece of the topographic map when I edit this, and we'll look at this benchmark so you'll know exactly where we were. Okay, so let's continue on. Okay, we are at a point where something has changed in these rocks structurally. And so if you look up behind me up here, you can see that it's like a big spire sticking right out of the ground. And if we turn around and look at the other side of the valley, see a similar spire sticking up on this side. So there's two big spires sticking up here with this erosional stream going between them. So what has happened here is we have been walking along these formations, and as we've been progressing up the trail, we are walking deeper and deeper into the formation. So we're going back in time. And below the Menalusa Formation, which is what we have been walking through so far, is the Madison limestone. And in fact, these big spires that we look at here are the Madison limestone. So the dip has been relatively gentle, 3 to 5 degrees. And all of a sudden right here, it goes almost vertical, where this dip is like 85 or 86 degrees. Okay, so something happened in here from flat line to very, very steep. And then it turns back over and it goes flatlined again. So you have this big, like an S turn in this area in here. Geologically, we refer to that type of a structure as a monocline, and it occurs right through here. This is the White Gates monocline, where these rocks are standing up. The stream has eroded through it, and you get these gates made out of the white Madison limestone. So we're going to see the same type of feature in some other formations as we continue up the trail, going deeper and deeper into the geologic age. Okay, so because these rocks are so steep, near vertical, as we walk along this trail, we're walking almost through the thickness of it as we walk along. So we're not walking along the dip, we're walking through the thickness. So if we look back up in the hill, back up here behind us, that's the same rock as we're on here, except if you can note bedding in there, it goes up and it starts to fold back over to relatively flat. So we have this big kind of S-bend, a monocline structure in here in the limestone. So this is pretty much a bedding surface going through here, still almost nearly vertical. So here on the rock that we're walking over, you can see all these kind of linear features in here. Those are bedding planes, and typically, you know, these are deposited flat, and they're standing nearly vertical right here. So this is an upper surface that should be facing up, but it's facing almost 90 degrees from horizontal. So this whole surface in here is upturned, nearly vertical, standing rock, and we're just walking through it. So all these boulders, as we go through here, you can see all these boulders in this field of debris in here. We're walking right along the creek. The creek is right over here, 50 feet off to the side. These boulders, they're very large. Some of them are 10 feet across. They either arrived here from flood activity, or their formation where they come from, which we haven't got to yet. This is part of the Deadwood Formation. We haven't seen it yet, so it's further back up the canyon. There was some type of a rock failure or landslide, and this debris came flowing down into this valley. So either fluvial or debris flow. These boulders sit here and form this kind of alluvial plain out here as we were walking through this White Gates. Okay, we are on the bottom of the Madison Formation, and so this whole formation right here, the Madison at its thickest can be about 700, 750 feet thick. I'm not sure how thick this was right here, but we came through the extent of it, and now we're to the rock units below the Madison, which we haven't seen yet. So the formation immediately below the Madison is the Englewood Formation. Below it is the Whitewood Formation, and below it is the Deadwood Formation, which we've seen the Deadwood. So somewhere in this kind of valley up here between the bottom part of the Madison Formation limestone and the upper surface of this red rock that we see up ahead of us up here, which is the Deadwood Formation, we've probably got 100, 150 feet of thickness in here that the Englewood and Whitewood sit in. But it's covered with slope debris, and it's highly weathered, and those formations do not stand out. But there's something in here. If they weren't present, then that red rock could be right up against the limestone. So there are formations here, we just can't see them. Okay, so this, again, very steeply dipping unit behind me is the upper surface of the Deadwood Formation. It's not as steep as what the Madison was, because we're on a little different part of the structure. So we've walked through a section that if we measured it, it had been about 85 degrees. This is probably about 70 degrees, maybe 73 degrees. But it's still very, very steeply dipping. We have not looked at the upper part of the Deadwood Formation yet in any of these videos. So we'll take a look at this here briefly. This is it's a sandstone, and it's very, very hard. Extremely hard. But it's extremely beautiful rock. It's quartz grains, mainly quartz in here. So quartz, a lot of different size of quartz grains. They are sub-rounded to angular. There's not many highly rounded grains in here. It almost has the appearance of a conglomerate. We'll take and put a drop of acid on it and see if it fizzes. Yes, there is a very small fizz in here. So there is carbonate cement in here. Some of this rock in here is also silicified, so it's an orthoquartzite. It's silica cementing silica, and that's what a lot of this is. Some of this fizz, because this is on the surface and there's limestone above us. As the limestone dissolves and runoff from rainwater flushes down over the surface of this rock, you can get limestone or a lime calcium scale on here, just like you get lime deposits, you know, around your sink faucet and those types of things. And so some of that surface on here that fizzed could be from something coming from above and not necessarily in this rock. So we'll take this back, we'll bag it, tag it, and look at it later. Okay, so we are in what is now the Red Gate. The Red Gate is in this red deadwood sandstone, and we're standing, you know, the rock is something like this, and again, you know, it goes up and then it's going to flatten out and roll over to kind of flat again up on top. So if we look across the canyon, we can see the other side of the gate over there. And as we go higher on the hill, you can see the roll in the rock, and the rock flattens out up on top. Okay, so this sandstone here, this deadwood sandstone, is pretty competent rock. It is very weathering resistant, and so that's why it stands as an outcrop. The harder a rock is, the more resistant to weathering it is, then the greater relief it is going to have on the landscape. So a rock outcrop is there because it's resistant. Shale, weakly cemented sandstones, highly fractured rock, and those types of things tend to weather quickly. Okay, so this is a very strong rock, and probably during the uplift of the Black Hills 45 to 50 million years ago, when this monocline structure was in place. Again, the monocline is kind of flat, and then it goes up relatively steep, and then it flattens back out again up on top. And so there were a lot of stresses on this rock, and there were a lot of fractures in here. In fact, here's a surface right here that this is a fault surface running through here. And see, it's very, very linear. You can track it through here, and you can see this extends for some distance in here. And these little surfaces with this bright red surface on here extend throughout this outcrop. Okay, many locations on here, this surface, which is really smooth, it's really hard, it's almost like a coat of epoxy on top of this rock. And that was formed by these two pieces of rock sitting together. And as the stress built up and the rock began to slip and move past one another, it built up enough force, enough pressure and heat that some of the materials in the rock actually could melt and then kind of coat out on the surface in here. Many times there's lines or grooves that are recorded in these surfaces that are called slicken lines that will indicate the direction of the movement. And here I don't see any slicken lines on these particular surfaces in here, but we do know that this side of the rock and this side of the rock, you know, one went out, one went in, one went this way, one went this way, some type of relative motion on here along this fault surface. So if we look up here, there's all kinds of little minute fractures in here, very, very small fractures, and they all got those dark red kind of stains in here. So these are all surfaces that were broken up during movement, and then record the movement of the rock. So I'm going to hunt around here for a little bit and see if I can find actual slicken lines that I can show you what direction of motion looks like. Okay, so this block right here is not in place. It's broken off from above and fallen down. But you can see this kind of this fault surface here that shows motion. And hopefully in the coloring that you can see on here, you can kind of see color variances going this way along these red surfaces. Okay, so those are indicators of motion, which means that the upper half and this lower half moved relative to one another like this or like this. And that created those lines on here. So slicken lines, this is a slicken surface, indicator of fault activity and motion of one part of rock past another part of rock. There's a whole bunch of fish in here. Man, a dozen or so right down there. I don't know if the camera can get through it though. All kinds of them. Couple of dozen. There's lots of log debris back here behind me along the creek channel. So almost every spring this little stream floods, and it can have some pretty good flows in here as well. You know, I'll keep an eye on it, and in future springs, if there's good runoff up here, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous river with cascading falls coming down through here at a torrent. And so I'll try to watch for that kind of activity and come up here. But when that happens, then there's all kinds of debris and logs and things that are left along the stream banks. Okay, so we had a little change of plan today. We ended up not going all the way up to the granite. We stopped at the red gates. As always, thanks for watching. See ya.